are a huge public resource and should be available for everyone is a given. But what museums aim to develop are the culture and the processes to share them better. Like for example, the Tate. The Tate has a collection of 65,000 works of art. But at any given time, at least 130 works are on long-term loan, and each year up to 800 or more are set up as temporary exhibitions in UK and abroad, which means that they are pretty low on their storage. Displaying objects is just only one way of putting them into use, and that is not the appropriate solution for all museum collections. Many museum objects are not at all suitable for display. Most museums would quickly become impracticably large and horribly indigestible for visitors if they were to display their entire collections. In recent years, museums have growing use of open storage, digitization and display in non-museum premises. Which brings me, I really cut this short, but which brings me to this Glasgow Museum Resource Centre, which is outside, right outside the city of Glasgow. I don't know whether people readily visit there like they visit. If they visit Glasgow, they go to Kelvin Grove or the Robbie Burns Museum and elsewhere. But I don't know whether people are shown towards this Glasgow Museum Resource Centre, which basically is actually the storage of all Glasgow museums. And it's really storage, but I'll tell you why I chose this to make the connection, because I've been there already 3 times. I mean, I go there much more than I go there anywhere else. So this has, if I may tell you, stores at least 1.4 million objects at any given time. And that's the aerial view of it's a really formidable looking building. It's hardly got any creativity from outside to tell you about. But once you enter, the differences you will see. So it's almost like a museum. You know, they have these stuffed birds, they have a children's section, and the children bring the parents as a whole connection to see the objects. Next one. The GMRC also works with different communities. They realized that if they just stick to the Scottish or the local residents, they won't get the kind of visitors or the youth. So even a humble object like that machine there, it's really a cold sewing machine, has brought that community, and they do regular programs with such communities. In fact, GMRC's director, Martin Bellamy, who was here a few months back, was telling me that they even allow the collections to go out of the museums to various communities under supervision, and they do programs there, and then they bring it back there. I don't know how many of the Indian museums will allow their collections to go out readily like this to any other community, even nearby. This is a group of students in front of a painting, of course, and I asked the trainer, some of these are my pictures, that what are they doing? They said they come in the morning, they register, they open their shoes, they wash their hands, they're asked to do all that, and then their whole day they are here, learning about this work, they paint there, they are actively engaged in it, it's part of the school curriculum. So they have to do this, and they do this regularly. And I saw happy faces there, not the way that they pulled as a regular exercise. Same here, this is a digital screen, and on the face of it, it might look a little boring, but it's got a very interesting element. There is a kiosk at the bottom, on the right-hand side, which allows the kids to write their own caption in that thing. So they are asked to think of what a caption would be to this painting. They do that, they take a print out, and it's like you've done your own painting. So there's huge engagement with, and a huge connect with this group also. The other thing the GMRC does is, and you can see all these are storages. This is not really a gallery or something, they're all storage, and they're all within the storage space, is to do festivals and festivals of different communities and attract people to come and talk to such people who are dressed in, you can see she's dressed in an Indian dress, and to find out more about it. But this is all happening at the storage center. This is not the museum really, it's just a storage center. Next one. I suppose you all know that that's the. But what I wanted to show was those wheels in which the paintings are stored. You know, they pull them out. They can, if they're up to there, they can come up to here, and that acts as a background to a lot of plays, a lot of book readings, a lot of events, and As a result, about 100 people can sit, and they do sit, against these works of art. And there's always a story to say to these people. It's just not stored like that. They're actually, you can see the wheels and they're pulled out to make the connections. Similarly, he's explaining to us, what the story is about. The next one. This is, of the 1.4 million objects in Glasgow Museum Resource Centre, I counted, I saw at least about 70 to 80,000 were transport, and this is a huge transport section. Buses, cars, ships, aeroplanes, all are there. And the place is full of people trying to understand those various objects and make stories out of them, make connections out of them, take pictures. And of course, this is one thing that they don't lend out to people because of austerity. But I saw a lot of happiness from the local communities on coming here and connecting with all these objects. So, I think also that dovetails into Jawhar's lecture that these are opportunities for really all these museums to bring out the collections out to the public and make events, stories and opportunities out of them. I think that will be a higher, bigger impact than just keeping them or dumping them in storage. Thank you.
Thank you, Samarjit. Thank you very much for keeping the time. Now may I request Mr. Stephane Amalir, Director of the Hotels Française, to deliver his lecture.
After these very two informative and very interesting talks, I feel a little bit insecure, and I would like to request your encouragement. I'm not an expert on today's subject. Nevertheless, I've been immodest enough to accept this invitation to share with you a very, very modest experience. First of all, I'm not going to give you a definition and certainly not an explanation of what a museum should be or what a perfect museum should be. For the simple reason that I don't think that there is one. I would suggest that there are as many types of museums as there are curators and indeed visitors. When you visit a museum, you enter a place with the intention of, figuratively of course, taking something away from it. But you also bring something to it. Your knowledge or your ignorance, your great expectation or your simple curiosity. And from your unique perspective, you understand the content of the space in a very personal way. After this brief introduction, I would like to describe a personal experience which made me think differently about museums, and which led me to work on a specific project. I worked almost 7 years in Vietnam, and my last posting was in Nha Trang, between Da Nang and Ho Chi Minh City. With 500,000 inhabitants, the city has two main economical sectors. The fishing industry, not only because of the fishing itself, but also because of the shipbuilding industry, which has developed the suburban areas, and tourism. It seems that there is little overlap between these two sectors, except of course in the field of gastronomy, because I personally think that the best seafood cuisine is Vietnamese. I will just get some slides. The fishing port is situated at the north of the city, at the mouth of a big river, and the mushrooming hotels are being built on the edge of the magnificent white sand beaches, and are on the island of the bay, Nha Trang, which has been classified as one of the most beautiful in the world, with Rio de Janeiro and Halong Bay. It is not a difficult task for the authorities of Nha Trang to attract tourists. The natural environment works in their favor, and they only have to spread the word, in fact, about it. So the authorities responsible for increasing the tourism in Nha Trang were facing a double challenge, but I can summarize it here. How to attract more tourists, and amongst them, tourists not only interested by the sea, and how to keep the tourist who sees the city only as a result a little bit more longer. I'm sure that they found a lot of interesting and profitable ways to respond to these questions. But I will mention one project which was seen at the time as having potential to interest the tourist. I'm speaking so far, I'm thinking about only the tourist, but you will see why in a few minutes, because of course the population of the city itself is very important in this case. In 2000, when I was the director of the center there, one of my tasks was to develop cooperation projects. And one day when I was just visiting the university, I noticed en route a vast area near the coast, which was not really visible from the road. I asked to visit it and discovered a vast shipyard, where there were a dozen fishing boats at different stages of construction. For the first visit, I spent a few hours just watching workers sewing huge trunks, filling fires, bent sprouts, literally sculpting each wooden bolt to attach sprouts to the skeleton of the future ship. It is difficult to describe how much every natural movement, every natural action from these workers were feeding my curiosity. As for me, I don't know if you are very familiar with that, but to build a boat usually requires a lot of metal, a lot of plastic, but certainly not all these techniques to move. Each tool was new to me. Some of the techniques were reminiscent of what I have seen in some museum in Brittany, the Maritime province in France where I come from. And suddenly I realized that I was in fact in a live museum, where people were performing, just for me, the same procedures their ancestors had taught them to build their own fishing boats. I looked around and realized that not only I was the only non-Vietnamese there, but I was also the only non-worker. And I felt very privileged at the time. So thereafter, I managed to meet the authorities and the director of the shipyard, the people from the People's authorities from the People's Committee who runs the city and the province there. And I tried to explain to them my simple and very simplistic idea. Open the shipyard to the public. The reaction I received was very, very polite. But after a few years in Vietnam, I could easily guess that behind the smile, the men in front of me were thinking, he lost it. Well, anyway. So I changed tack and asked instead the permission to organize a team of French and Vietnamese students who could conduct a monography, a small study of the shipyard. And because the French have developed a similar concept in one of the towns I knew, I invited the delegation to visit it. So for 3 weeks, 5 or 6 students shared their time between scuba diving and drinking, as well as photography, interviews, measurement, etc., to finally write a document. Maybe not completely scientific, of course, but full of information, and more importantly, proving that the tourists they interviewed on the beaches, but also the townspeople would be very interested to visit the shipyard if it would be open. And that conclusion was quite news to the authorities. As I said, the second step was the trip to France. I combined a group of high-profile civil servants to Brittany, the west part of France, to visit a few places, especially Jawhar, home of the Port Musée, and the Atelier de l'Enfer. I'm going to describe briefly what are they exactly. The Port Musée de Jawhar, inaugurated in 1993, so it's quite recent, is, as its name may explain, firstly a port or harbor, and secondly a museum, and more specifically an open-air museum. In fact, the original idea came about in an attempt to save some boats from destruction and oblivion. Not just famous and historical ships, I always make a mistake, sorry about it, but boats used by different corporations. Fishing boat, of course, but also transport barges, fireman boats, house light boats, in the middle of the channel, etc. Because these are, in fact, part of our history and heritage. An easier and much cheaper solution would have been to take some pictures, to do some models, maybe even to put the boats on the island. But the option which has been chosen, in fact, was not an easy one. The idea behind it The challenge, in fact, was different. The idea was that a boat should live, even when retired, on the sea where she had walked for decades. And that the public should discover her on water, to feel, to smell, and to touch her. People nowadays, they can climb on board, children can run on the deck, and fathers can show off at the wheel. Next to the Fort Musée stands the Atelier de l'Enfer, or in English, Hell's Workshop, which is a shipyard in the center of a vocational school and a live museum. In this place, open and facing the river, young students learn the ancestral techniques employed to design a sailing boat, to use wooden bolt, or to sew a sail or a genoa. The atelier organizes formal tuitions, as well as short workshops, and even visits whose target is to give the general public a glimpse of traditional techniques. To be honest, this visit didn't convince the Vietnamese authorities to transform the shipyard into a tourist attraction, at least as far as I know, because it was 10 years ago. But I'm still convinced that this shipyard, adapted to the security, of course, for the visitors, and keep that in mind, with an educational center, like we saw just before, and very importantly with some guides who would explain the hows and the whys of every techniques. This place should have attracted people, and not only boats lovers like